Okay, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about carbon compounds, or compounds that make up the bulk of living things. That they contain carbon, which is a very important type of atom because of some of its properties. So let's talk a little bit about carbon. Carbon can bond with many elements, including hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, and nitrogen, to form compounds with many different chemical properties. As you can see, it can form up to 4 covalent bonds. Sometimes they're single bonds, sometimes they're double bonds, sometimes they're triple bonds. Sometimes they form chains of atoms, sometimes they form rings, and sometimes they form branching chains. And they make up what we call macromolecules, macro meaning large organic molecules that are found in living things, through a process called polymerization. So you have a bunch of monomers that join together to make a polymer. So monomers are the small subunits or building blocks of macromolecules, and polymers are large molecules that are made up of many monomers. There's 4 kinds of organic molecules, or carbohydrates are one type. Living things use carbohydrates as a source of energy or for structural purposes. They're made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, usually in a ratio of 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen. And they make up things like sugars, starch, glycogen, and chitin. We call the monomers monosaccharides and the polymers polysaccharides. Lipids are another type of organic molecule that are very large, very group. They're usually not soluble in water. They're made mostly of carbon and hydrogen with some oxygen, but not with the same ratio. Fats, oils, and waxes are common types of lipids, including the cell membrane. You can see here, you can see you've got glycerol and 3 fatty acids. This is a triglyceride, a common fat. Sometimes you have what we call saturated or unsaturated fats. Basically, it has to do with the number of double bonds between the carbons. If there are no double bonds, it's a saturated fat. It's a solid at room temperature. It's not typically as healthy to eat. Unsaturated fats typically are liquids at room temperature, and they're healthier for us. Third type of organic molecule are the nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are polymers made up of nucleotides, which we see pictured here, and they make up things like DNA, RNA, and ATP. So you have a 5-carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogenous base. And the last type of organic molecule are the proteins. They are polymers made up of building blocks called amino acids, which are compounds with an amino group at one end and a carboxyl group at the other end. So here's the general structure of an amino acid. They're joined together by a special type of bond called a peptide bond. The functions of proteins include controlling the rate of reactions in terms of enzymes, regulating cell processes, forming cell structures, transporting substances, and helping to fight diseases. Like I said, they're held together by a special type of covalent bond called a peptide bond. A protein is a functional molecule built from 1 or more polypeptide chains. Because the structure is so important, we look at structure in a variety of ways. We can look at the very basic structure called the primary structure, which is just the sequence of amino acids in the right order. The secondary structure is due to hydrogen bonding and so forth and the interactions with water, and it results in folding or coiling of the polypeptide chain. Tertiary structure is the 3-dimensional arrangement of a polypeptide chain. And then for proteins that have more than one chain, like the hemoglobin molecule here that has 4, coordinating structure is how the different polypeptide chains come together and form a complete protein.